In this video, we will look at the math object in JavaScript. The math object in JavaScript is a built-in object that provides a collection of properties and methods for performing mathematical operations. So, in order to access this method, we write math, and then with the dot operator, you see that VS Code gives us auto-completion of the methods and properties that can be accessed on this object. So the first property we'll look at is called the pi property. So I'll just say console.log math.pi and go to my terminal and use node to run my file. When I do that, you see the value of pi printed in the console. So when you want to work with pi, or you want to do a mathematical operation in JavaScript whereby you need access to the value of pi, you can just use the math.pi, the math object, and access the pi property on it. Let's go ahead and look at some math methods that can be accessed as well. The first one we'll look at is called the round method, which returns the value of the value rounded to the nearest integer. So I'll just say console.log math with capital M dot round, and then I'll just pass 4.7 for example, and go to my terminal and run my file. We get what? 5 here. So the value is 5. When I copy this down and then change it to, let's say, something below the decimal point of 5, so let's say 4.3, and run my file again, you see that we get what? 4. So that's the round method. The next method we'll look at is the seal method. So I'll just comment these ones out and then say console.log math.seal and then put, let's say, 4.1. Now, what the math.seal method does is it returns the smallest integer greater or equal to the value provided. So when I go to my terminal and run my file, we get what? 5. So it is providing the smallest integer greater or equal to the value that we have provided. Even if I add a decimal point that is greater than 5, let's say 9, and then run my file again, we get what? 5 outputted in our terminal. The next method we'll look at is the floor method. So I'll just say console.log math.floor, which returns the largest integer less or equal to the value provided. So just the exact opposite of the seal method. So I'm just passing a value of 4.5. When I run my file, I get 4 outputted in the terminal. When I put a decimal fraction here, which is, let's say, less than 5, and then run my file again, we get 4 again. So the floor method is just the exact opposite of the seal method. The next method we'll look at is the trunc method, which returns the integer part of a value by removing any fractional decimal. So I'll just say console.log math.trunc, and then let's say pass in 5.7 here and run. Let me just clear my terminal quickly here and then run my file again with node. We get what? 5 outputted in the console. So this will just remove the fractional aspect. So when I even add more decimal points, it will just truncate it for us. So that's it about the trunc method. We'll move on and look at the power and then the square method. So I'll just go ahead and say console.log math.power. And then this one takes 2 arguments. So the first one, let's say 4 to the power of, let's say, 5. So the value, which is 4 to the power of 5, we see that it gives us these results here. And when I change this to, let's say, 10 to the power 5, let's see what it gives us. It gives us this value. So that's the power method. The next one we'll look at is the square root method, which returns the square root of the value provided. So let's look at an example, which is just console.log math.square, written like this, sqrt. Then we just provide a perfect square. Let's say 81, for instance. When I run my file, we get 9. When I pass any value here, random value, and then go ahead and run my file again, we get the square root of that number. The next one we'll look at is the let's say the mean and then the maximum methods. The mean and then the maximum methods. So first of all, let's look at the mean method. So I'll just console.log. So the mean method returns the smallest of zeros or more numbers. So for instance, when I say math.mean, then I'll pass in some values here. Let's say 10, 30, random values, and then save, and then run my file. We get to at 7, which is what the minimum value. When I change this to 700 and run my file, I think 10 is now the minimum value among this range of numbers that are being given, same as what the maximum or the max method. So I'll just change this to max and comment this one out and run my file again. Let's see what we get. We get to a 700, which is what the largest number among the values provided. Then finally, we'll look at the random method, which returns a pseudo random number between 0 inclusive and 1 exclusive. So let's look at that quickly. Let me just clear my terminal and then go back to my file. I'll say console.log math.random. So I can just do this math.random, and then when I run my file, it generates a random number between 0, starting from 0 and then to 1, which is what exclusive. So between 0 and what 9, it generates random numbers between what zeros and 9. So that is it. So I can go ahead. So sorry, did I say 0 and 9? It generates random numbers between what 0 and what 1, which is what exclusive. So 0.99999. So not what I said earlier. So when I continue to run this file, you see we are getting 0.7, 0.4. This one gives us 0.5. When I run it again, we get to at 0.1. So 0.999 what? Those are the various ranges of values that are generated. So let's say I want to generate a random number between, let's say 0, 1 and 10. I can multiply these by 10 and then finally add 1 to it, or whatever result is being given there. When I do that, I'm now getting my values, which are between what 1 and what 10. So I'm still getting decimal fractions, and then I can just copy this, the whole of this. I'll just cut it like this and then use math.floor first, and then I'll just paste this here, and then finally do this, which will just remove the decimal aspect. Now I'm getting numbers between 1 and then what 10. So that's it about the random method. That's all for this video. Please follow, subscribe, and like for more videos and contents like this. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.